In this part 3, I'll show you how I did the painting of the gauntlets. Before I can even paint the armor pieces, I need to seal all the armor pieces. So I use Plastidip, and I use at least 5 layers of Plastidip on each of the armor pieces. Once the Plastidip is all been applied to all the armor pieces, I went and used Krylon metallic black paint to all the armor pieces to give a metallic base to my armor. Once you finish applying all the metallic black paint, you now have a good base to proceed to the next step of painting. Since all my rivets are stainless steel, I need to be able to paint them. So I basically build a little rig to be able to paint them all at once, so I don't need to do it all individually. Once on the rig, I basically use the same metallic black paint to paint them. Now we're ready to start dry brushing all the rivets and even all the armor pieces as well. So to do the dry brushing effect, I basically use silver acrylic paint for dry brushing on all the pieces. So my goal is to hit all the raised area of the armor pieces and the edging, and also this allows me to give more volume to the armor pieces. So it's just not a flat metallic paint, but some more texture and volume to the armor pieces. After all the dry brushing was done, I used Ministerium varnish to seal my dry brushing onto the armor pieces before I proceed to the next stage. By doing this, it allows me to make sure I don't lose my dry brushing effect. Et voila, all the armor pieces are now varnished and the dry brushing is sealed, and we're ready to proceed to the next step. One thing I want to say is that it's starting to look like real metal, and the thing is, nobody will know that this was all made out of foam. There's a small piece that connects the thumb to the main armor that has like a unique brass and copper tone effect. So to achieve this, I use Brass Scorpion as a first dry brush on that piece. I then, after that, use Hashnut Copper to do the little highlights on that piece to give that unique tone of color. To continue the same effect of rust on my armor to have a consistency in my whole cosplay, I went ahead and do the same rusting effect. So I use Scrag Brown as a base of all the rust, and I added that at all where there'll be like where pooling of water could be, or lots of wear and tear of the armor. So I mostly had the joints, and also this will allows me to give more volume to the armor pieces. For the tighter areas for the rust, I use a smaller brush to implement the same rust effect into those spike areas. So I was able to use a smaller brush to go into those small nooks and crannies to give that rust in those areas. I then use Fire Dragon Bright onto the base of the first Scrag Brown effect to give like fresher hue of rust on them as well, so it doesn't look like a flat color, but there's a little bit of depth into the rusting effect. Now that the painting is now complete, it's now time to glue the straps into place into the armor pieces. So basically I marked where it should be, then I used contact cement on the leather strap piece and into the armor pieces. And you might notice that I kept certain areas not covered by plastic because I want to have a good adhesion to the foam itself to keep those straps in place so it doesn't peel the paint or plastic, but it will stay glued to the foam pieces. Once the glue has time to cure, it's now time to connect all those leather straps to the armor pieces. To hide any foam being visible, because I was using yellow and paint craft foam, I basically mixed some metallic paint together, so basically black and silver together, to then paint over those areas to make it more seamless. We're now at the stage of assembling the gauntlet together. And there you have it, the whole gauntlet all assembled with all the rivets in place and ready to proceed in the next step. Right now my rivet stands out, so I went ahead and used the same rusting techniques I did on the gauntlet on all those rivets, so it looks more blended within the armor. We're now at the stage of connecting the knuckle to the scale armor pieces of the fingers. So what I did is I added some super glue to each of those knuckle joints that will connect to the fingers, and I want to make sure to connect them properly. I remove some of the armor pieces so I can easily manipulate the stuff around, and then I start making sure that all those scales are connected to the right knuckle area so I can have it more connected properly. And as you can see here, it's now connected properly. I then added the other armor pieces of the plates of the gauntlet together because I need to add that so I can connect the thumb pieces together. So doing the same step as I did for the knuckles is I use some super glue to connect the scales and the thumb guard together, as I want to make sure that those pieces stays together and doesn't move around, and so I can still have the same mobility and movement of my hands when grabbing a sword or the flail or anything with those hands. And you can see I still have the mobility of my thumb, and you can see the joints connector is moving perfectly and freely like so. Once that was completed, I went ahead and connect the rest of the armor pieces together to complete the gauntlet at the bottom guard, and then strapped on the straps, and then the gauntlet is now all assembled, as you can see right here. There's one more detail I need to add to the gauntlet, is that I need to create another strap that will go into the inside of the palm of the hand. Et voila, the gauntlets are now completed and they look amazing.